The Tuesday, the fallout from Juan Soto. How is Blue Jays Nation feeling? We'll find out today's episode.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But for Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, we've sort of made YouTube the hub where you can find live streams, shorts, videos, podcasts, the whole 9 yards. So make sure you drop the subscription. Helps us out. Lets you guys know whenever anything is posted. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button as well. A lot to get into today. We want to talk about the fallout from Juan Soto. We have to get into it. How is everybody feeling? What does the deal look like? We're going to sort of go over some of the things, but also really dive into it. You know, we sort of had our immediate reactions from the live stream. Now you guys can hear us, sort of a little bit more thought out, a little bit, we got our heads together. Then we'll talk about what's the Blue Jays plan B option here. Now, where do we go? What's the next moves? And then, of course, we're going to talk some other news in Jordan Romano, a couple other things that happened over the weekend and so forth. So, Carter, let's start right now. The fallout from Juan Soto. Let's kick things off. The deal, sort of how everything has taken place, the shape of the deal, and the little sort of interesting components to it as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll just jump right into breaking down the deal once again. So around Sunday night, I think it was 8 p.m., give or take our time, we finally get the Juan Soto announcement. And he has signed with the team that I kind of figured he would sign with this entire offseason. It was the New York Mets. Don't really get the same surprise there. It reminded me exactly of, again, in the moment, still reminds me of the same thing. You have Shohei Ohtani, you have the two LA teams in. This year, you have the two New York teams in. Should have been heavily favored the entire time. We're the heavy favorites the entire time. We had some things about the Red Sox. Again, just being a Red Sox fan right now, going through the exact same story as we did in 2023, track the plane Shohei Ohtani. They get the full support from whoever that guy is in Boston. I'm just wanted to know how you guys feel now. Does it feel a lot better after you get those reports? Like, was it good in the moment, I guess, when you thought you were the leading team to land Juan Soto? We've been there before, so I can tell you it's definitely not feeling good to be a Red Sox fan right now. But lucky for us, he is out of the AL East. Unfortunately, not with the Jays, with the New York Mets. But a 15-year, $765 million deal with the Mets. The highest contract in all of sports. The highest one since the Shohei Ohtani contract, which only happened, obviously, last season. Up there with the Messis, up there with all of these household names. So Juan Soto, again, should be or is breaking the history books and should become an even more commonplace name throughout anyone, I guess, that's watching sports. So, again, over the 15 years, he does have an opt-out over the first 5 seasons. If he does decide, though, to stay with the New York Mets, his salary will increase another $4 million over the remainder, driving the total beyond $800 million. So, in the moment, definitely a lot more disappointed than I am right now. Again, because he's had a little bit of those emotions in there. But it definitely was a lot easier after the 2023 stuff. I know I wasn't nearly as much in on Shohei as you were, Again, I wanted him really badly to come to the Toronto Blue Jays, was just kind of thinking, it makes sense to the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's still kind of where I was at with this whole Mets and Yankee situation. It felt like the entire time he was going to stay in New York. It was just which New York team was he going to go to. Again, near the end, had a little bit of the Dodgers kind of sniffing around in there, but then obviously they signed Conforto, and they're kind of out of it at the last little bit there. But yeah, this one doesn't hurt nearly as bad as the Shohei Ohtani one, because I think kind of what we saw from last season put a bad taste in my mouth, and we kind of knew what was going to happen at the end of this offseason anyway with the Juan Soto Sweepstakes.
Yeah, I wasn't super shocked. I think when it came down to that night, I sort of expected it. This is, I had the feeling in my heart that it was going to be the Mets. I know I've talked a little bit about the Yanks, that he would go back there. My hope, obviously, that he would have been a Toronto Blue Jay. And that hope, I sort of wondered where the Blue Jays sat in terms of money when it came to this Soto. What was the offer that they made to Juan Soto? John Heyman says on the K show, Mets were at $720 million for a long time and almost stopped at $750 million. Toronto at that time was at $760 million. So the Mets put in obviously a final offer of $765 million. Obviously, the contracts could have been a little bit different, but it shows you how close they were and how much they were gunning for Juan Soto. So I think in the back of our heads, you have to give. I hate to say this because we've gotten a lot of takes on Ross Atkins as of the past 2 days. Um, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of willing to spend the money, willing to make a big play. Because they did. They obviously offered the $760 million, which is an insane amount of money. I still think that this $765 million contract for Juan Soto, I don't necessarily still know how I feel about the price tag. I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot of money. I think that we'll get into the whole plan B of it all, but I think you could get three pieces and surround Bo and Vlad now, and you might have a better team than maybe that the Mets will have if that goes that way. But it's just crazy to think how close the Blue Jays came and didn't quite get there.
Yeah, I kind of said this on when we went live right after the Juan Soto signing is is that, yeah, like they're in on every single conversation. It feels like they're in on all these big free agents, but how much are you actually caring about all that? The Toronto Blue Jays are the finalists in every single big free agent when they're not landing any of the big free agents. Again, now there still is this a way better market than there was at the end of 2024. Some of the bigger names feel a lot more safer, especially comparing them to last season. But in theory, like Juan Soto is getting $51 million per season. Again, things can change after the opt-out, things like that. But for the conceivable future, Juan Soto will be making $51 million a year. How many players right now can you sign with $51 million just for 2025? You got to expect, again, a minimum of 2 with that, probably 3. If 4 would be great as well. And as we look at this offseason, as we look at the Juan Soto stuff, initially it kind of came out as this 12-year, $600 million deal. We see it get to 765. Willie Adames, I think it was 182 million over 6 years. He was sitting at, again 2 weeks ago around the 150, $160 million mark. You look at Tyler O'Neill, he's getting 49 million over 3 years from the Baltimore Orioles. Again, didn't expect it to be that high. And that's what we talk about a lot of the time on this podcast, is that you get these initial numbers. It's kind of where the bidding war starts as you get farther into free agency. Again, not too far. You can't get into February, can't get into March, things like that. Obviously, these players and their agents are losing leverage. But we've seen so far just a quick history of players going for over their market value already. So you got to think that with some of these other free agents now, especially with Juan Soto off the market, these corner outfielders, their price tag probably going to start creeping up drastically as well.
Yeah, you'll see other teams needing to start bidding on these guys because they don't want to miss out on a piece, right? You'll see guys like Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander, all of these guys now probably going for a little bit more than they would because the Soto deal happened, and now other teams are scrambling to find, which we'll get into, their plan Bs and what the Jays will be. But that's what a lot of these teams in the MLB are going to be doing. And I think a lot of this offseason, Carter, I talked about setting a precedent. And shout out Justin Powers, I think, commented that on the Instagram post the other day. And it did. It sets a precedent. The Ohtani deal now set a precedent for Juan Soto. And now Juan Soto's deal has set a precedent for every other player on the market because now teams are having to scramble, having to get into these bidding wars with the remaining guys still available in free agency. So it is going to be very, very interesting in the next couple of days to see what prices for those guys will be. I know we've set a few prices for a few guys as we've sort of done the free agency tracker and looking and into who could be a Toronto Blue Jay. Now will we see those prices exceed what we originally thought? That's going to be the big question for me.
Yeah, and I think we are going to, just the way history has gone, the way this contract is paid out. You got to assume that we're going to see a few players getting, again, significantly more than we thought they were going to get at the start of this offseason. But I just wanted to kind of talk about obviously getting Juan Soto. This is probably going to be one of the last times we do talk about Juan Soto because he is officially off the market. But does Juan Soto actually flip the Toronto Blue Jays for 2025? You get Juan Soto. Maybe you get one other bullpen arm. We always say there's about 60-ish million. Again, that's going to fluctuate a little bit with the contracts, the arbitration, things like that. We got majority of them paid out already, so that's obviously a good thing. It kind of makes it a little bit more clear what the Blue Jays are in. But again, for this offseason, which throughout history, throughout the president, the Toronto Blue Jays have set in their front office has set in the Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro tenure, they don't usually go off the luxury tax, and they don't usually go over the luxury tax at all. So you have Juan Soto. Again, maybe you get the one bullpen arm. Now you flip the script a little bit here. We'll kind of get into more of the players that where they can be looking at in the second segment. But now you can probably sign 1 to 2 bullpen arms. You can be in on a starting pitcher. You can be in on multiple positional players. Again, hopefully a corner outfielder, then hopefully a second baseman or third baseman. If you have a good year from Vladdy, you have a good year from Bo. I'm not expecting a lot from George Springer this upcoming season. I'll say maybe one of these fringe MLB guys has a very productive season, can be more of the everyday player. For this example, we'll say it's Will Wagner, because I know you're a big Will Wagner guy. The Toronto Blue Jays seem to be really high on this guy, so you have that as well. Alejandro Kirk, as we approve a year from him, you have him mixing in there. You get those two players that you got to assume can be above average bats at the MLB level. You have another good season from Spencer Horwitz. I think with that, when you're adding in so many different directions, when there was so many problems in 2024, I think that could go down the stretch, and it could help the Toronto Blue Jays a lot more than just a Juan Soto would have. The only thing is, with signing this many players, you're relying on a lot more to go right for your team. There's injuries, there's down years, there's things like that. With Juan Soto, is there really a down year that he's going to have? Maybe he won't be worth the $765 million player in a couple seasons. But overall, Juan Soto is one of the best players in all of baseball. So I think there's a little bit more certainty there. And obviously your upside is higher. Maybe you can get some other guys. You don't have to pay as much to have fulfilling roles as well. But I think for the Blue Jays, this might be, again, a slight blessing in disguise. Obviously not a blessing in disguise to miss out on Juan Soto, but it could end up helping them out a little bit more than hindering them, because this allows them to go for multiple positions of need rather than just one big one.
Yeah, Carter, you know what? As I sort of let the emotions of the excitement and everything come down to a normal level again, I look back at it and think maybe we all got caught up in this. And maybe the Toronto Blue Jays did too, in the sense that, okay, they wanted Juan Soto. Yes, it would be awesome because big name, great player. But is that the best way to help your team? And now I'm sort of looking back and thinking, you're right. Maybe it's not. Maybe the best way is, I think it shows the fans what they're willing to spend. Now, if they go and spend, say it's $50 million, Carter, on other players, that gives you, like you talked about, your 2, 3, maybe 4 pieces to come into this team. I think overall that it makes your team possibly better than if you're just adding Juan Soto and praying to God that he's enough and that you get bounce backs from all these guys. Now, I think it opens the doors for a bigger possibility here with a better all-around team, I want to say. Because maybe instead of just having, Bo and Vlad and Soto, now maybe you have, which we'll get into in the plan B, a whole bunch of these other guys. Maybe your top 5 to 6 guys in the batting order are really good. You have a decent bullpen, and your starters are fantastic. I think that is better all around than just putting Juan Soto in there. So I think looking back to everyone's reactions, we got caught up in the hype, we got caught up in the excitement, but what makes your baseball team better? Is it signing one guy and praying to God that that's it? Or is it making a bunch of smart decisions that can maybe lead your team to a better place? I'm looking at it that way now, because I think I got caught up in the excitement of it all.
See, but in theory, though, like, you got to assume that your GM would be willing to make all of these other decisions. We saw that they were going to Shohei Ohtani, and then we saw what they did for the rest of their 2024 offseason. So in that sense, when we're looking at the history that this management has put this team in and the places that they've set this team up for success in the upcoming season, hasn't really been the best thing of all time. We haven't really had that impactful signing. We're like, oh, this is going to change the team. This is going to flip the script for the next season. We always talk about the what ifs. Like, this almost happened. We need them to actually pay out some of these contracts, because in theory they have all this money to spend, but are they actually going to spend the money? And who knows? Maybe we missed it. Maybe Juan Soto can pitch. Maybe he can come and actually fix the bullpen as well. Because that's going to be the biggest thing, is that if you were in on Juan Soto, are you going to kind of be reluctant to add to this bullpen? And obviously Juan Soto fixes the offensive problems on this team, but it does not fix the pitching problems, the bullpen problems, the depth that you have in the starting rotation, things like that. So in theory, this is, again, could work out for the Toronto Blue Jays. But is Ross Atkins actually going to make the correct moves? Is he going to prove people wrong? Is he going to restore faith back in the fan base? It's very hard to believe that. We've kind of drilled this into your guys' heads on this podcast, is because we've seen the same thing over and over and over again. And again, with the offseason, there is a lot of speculation. In theory, they could be in on all of these free agents, and they seem to be in on all these free agents. But being in on a free agent and actually getting a free agent is a whole different story.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We want to talk about what's next for this Toronto Blue Jays team. Where else are they looking in free agency? What do they have to do to be successful in 2025? We'll be right back with all of that. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So I'm telling you guys, the live bets are where it's at. You can see who's doing well. You can see who isn't quite doing as well. And you can sort of make your bets accordingly. I think that's a win-win right now. So make sure you guys go in there, get that done. And if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. As I said, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, Carter, it's time. It's plan B. What is the Blue Jays' plan B option? Let's get right into it. I'm going to kick things off here and bring up the number one thing that I think needs to happen here, and sort of go through my thinking in my head. I'll pass it over to you, and we can see if we're sort of on the same page. The number one thing for me that needs to happen now, you have to sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and I think you have to sign Bo Bichette and make sure you have those two players locked up and ready to play and not weighing them down in a contract year. Now, in saying that, Vlad and Bo might both want to push free agency and see what they can get. I think you have to blow Vlad out of the water. We will talk more about this as there has been statements made from Ross Atkins and John Schneider in tomorrow's episode. We will go over all of that and sort of break that down. But that's my number one. My number two is making some signings that can forward this team, push this team over the edge. And what that would be for me is a left fielder like Anthony Santander, Jurickson Profar, whoever it may be. If it is Teoscar Hernandez, great. You need somebody there. And then you need a second baseman or third baseman that probably slots in around, even if it is the 20 million mark, because I'm probably expecting Anthony Santander or Teoscar to probably hit close to that $25 million range. And then go into the bullpen. You need to add there. I'm not worried about starting pitching. I know that the Blue Jays have been linked to some guys like Corbin Burns and a few others actually that we've talked about on this podcast. I don't necessarily believe that they need starting pitching. That would be my sort of last look here. My first look has to be shoring up positions, getting big bats in that can hit home runs. Secondly, the bullpen needs to be addressed. And I don't think that shocks anybody. But above and beyond anything else, you have to make sure Vlad is going to be here for the remainder of his career. Sign him to a 15-year deal for all I care. Get it, make sure he stays, and pay the man the money.
I think Vladdy and Bo should be the most important thing for the Toronto Blue Jays future. But if you're looking for 2025, if you're looking at how the Juan Soto contract should affect the rest of this offseason, I don't think that's necessarily the biggest priority for just specifically the 2025 season, because again, they're already on your baseball team. I'm going to focus on the players available for the 2025 free agency and the players that can make this team better in the short term just for 2025. So we talked about it obviously on the Monday's podcast. Ha-Seong Kim, again, don't want this guy to be your big signing of the offseason. But this does feel like a very Toronto Blue Jays signing. It would make a lot of sense if this guy does come to your team, can play third base, can play second base. I see him early on, probably slotting at second base. I think you give Ernie Clement those third base roles. But again, if you're going to sign a guy like, if you want to get Alex Bregman, I'm definitely going to be in on a guy like that. I know a lot of people in the comments aren't necessarily in on a guy like Bregman. Kind of think he'll be similar to the George Springer situation, where he's pretty decent to start off and then obviously falls off greatly after. I know Santander, that's kind of the same problems as well. Again, when you have Santander not being as good of a fielder, I guess if his hitting falls off, obviously that's why you're getting in a guy like Anthony Santander. You want him for the hitting. So that can be a little bit of a problem there as well. But for me, I think there's a lot better of options for just the depth of the market, just the quality of options at the corner outfield positions, where you have a lot more leeway there compared to a place like third base or compared to a place like second base. Because for me, looking at these middle infielders, like Kyle Farmer would not be bad, but he had been signed as well. So you got Gleyber Torres there, and then you got Ha-Seong Kim as those middle infielders. Other than that, I think you kind of just run it back, unfortunately, and you use what you have in your system. Because is any of these players going to be an impact signing? Again, the Toronto Blue Jays might get a random guy. They might get like a Jose Iglesias coming off of a good year, something like that. Maybe an Ahmed Rosario, something that's, again, a little bit farther underneath the field of good free agents this upcoming season and for the upcoming season. It's when you're looking at the Jays, usually in on a bunch of like top tier free agents, and then they kind of start going farther and farther, start scraping the barrel a little bit more. So what I want, honestly, is just a corner outfield signing and then something in the infield. Then if you get a starting pitcher as well, you need at least one major bullpen arm. Obviously, with the Jordan Romano signing as well, he's not coming back. Whether it's Carlos Estevez, whether it's Tanner Scott, Jeff Hoffman, any of those guys, you just need someone that's going to be an impact piece at the top end of your bullpen. So ideally, again, they will just make 6, 7 moves in free agency. But more realistically, if they can make 2 or 3, again, at an absolute minimum of 2, I would be looking for 3 or 4. That can set them up better than just a prototypical one. So again, bolstering the offense, but not really bolstering the bullpen or the starting pitching at all this offseason.
Yeah, which would be crazy. I mean, if you don't address the situation in the bullpen, I don't know. Like maybe you go into the season, you make a couple trades midseason, early season trades, something like that to bolster the bullpen. I could maybe see that happening. But you're right. I think the corner outfield position right now could be the most important piece. Yes, outside of Vlad and Bo, 100%. I think we both know how important those two guys are, especially Vlad. It's going to be interesting, Carter. I'm very curious to see how you guys feel. Some of you have left us comments, which I think we're going to go through them a little bit, bring some of them up. But there was so many of them and so many different takes that we're going to have to really, search through them all here. But some very interesting pieces. We've heard some people say from the Ha-Seong Kim episode that they weren't necessarily too thrilled about Ha-Seong Kim. Sort of in the same vein I was. Like, if that's your major piece, it's not great. But if you pair him with a very solid left fielder, then maybe. And then if you were able to add to the bullpen, maybe it all sort of works out that way. I know how I said that I was interested in Gleyber Torres. I think looking back now that I've had, again, time to really think about this offseason, I think I would like Gleyber over Ha-Seong Kim, Carter. I've sort of gone back to that. I know that's not on some people's radar. Some people don't like that. But if I'm just comparing the two, I think Gleyber gives you a little bit more hitting upside. I think more from the power spot. But if you're getting Ha-Seong Kim and you want him to be your leadoff hitter in place of George Springer, then I'm all for that as well. I just want to see the Blue Jays do something. I think they need to do something quickly. A big offer that's going to blow some guy out the water like an Anthony Santander, because you can't miss out again. That's where I'm at. You don't want to miss out because Teoscar Hernandez, as much as it's still a possibility, and the Blue Jays have alluded to it, Ross Atkins has talked about Teoscar Hernandez, saying we are definitely interested in figuring out a way for that to be a possibility. But in the same respect, you can't miss out on Teoscar, who's been interested in going back to the Dodgers, has interested from a few other teams, and then miss out on Santander, and then miss out on Profar, and then miss out on whoever else. You're going to be left with no option. So I think jumping on a Santander or Teoscar and blowing them out of the water with a little bit more money might be a better play, just to make sure that you get one of those guys you want. And then I think you can take a little bit of leeway with Ha-Seong Kim or Gleyber Torres, offering them. I don't think there's as much looking at those two compared to a left fielder right now looking for a power bat. So my number one priority is the same as yours. It has to be, but let us know what you guys think down below in the comments. Where do you feel like the Jays should be with their plan B? Should they be just targeting the bullpen? Is the bullpen your main priority? Is it the left field? Is it the power bat? Is it one of those infielders? Let us all know. How do you guys feel about the starting pitching? That's another interesting part I'm into. I feel like it shouldn't be a high priority, but it seems like the Blue Jays are weirdly making it one. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't love it. I think that there's a better use of their time and money would be to go and pour money into other components of the game. But, I'll leave it be for now until we see something. But Carter, just going back to that, the starting pitching, how do you feel?
It would feel like a very Toronto Blue Jays offseason if you have glaring needs and you decide to bolster the thing that was the best for you last season. But going into this offseason, it really felt like it was kind of like an all or nothing year. Like, it didn't seem like Ross Atkins was too focused on the future. It feels like a starting pitching signing this offseason would be more so for the future than it would be for 2025, even though they are on names like Corbin Burns. They are on names like Max Fried, but you have Kevin Gausman coming off the books in 2 years. You have Chris Bassett becoming a free agent. You have a little bit of uncertainty with Alek Manoah. Jose Barrios can technically opt out after the 2026 year. So if you're in on a starting pitcher this year, again, when you're in on Corbin Burns, you're in on Max Fried. These guys are rumored to want more like a 5-year, 6, 7-year, 10-year contract rather than these shorter term contracts. So a starting pitcher would make it seem like they're really focused on the future rather than this upcoming season. Because if you were focused on this upcoming season, you would be in on a power bat. You would be in on bullpen arms. You wouldn't necessarily be focusing on the starting pitching. I don't know if it's because of the expectation. That definitely has a lot to do with it when you're in on guys like Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani in back-to-back years. Now with the corner outfielders, for me, it's Jurickson Profar, it's Anthony Santander, it's Teoscar Hernandez, or it's bust, or it's a bad offseason right there. You got your three options in the corner outfield. And this is all you have. If you're going to be in on these major superstars and then not get one of the corner outfield spots, that would make your team a lot better for 2025. I think at that point, I'm going to say the Toronto Blue Jays aren't going to be that good again. I don't think they're going to be a serious baseball team. So you have such a glaring need in the corner outfield spot, and there is interest amongst these free agents again, like there is, it seems like, on every other free agent that we're talking about. But if it's not Teo, if it's not Santander, there's interest on both of them. Ross Atkins said he'd love a reunion with Teo. And then it's reported that the Jays, Red Sox, and Yankees, like we said, didn't get Juan Soto, that they would be in again on these other corner outfielders. So they're going to have to make a move quick. Like I said a couple days ago, Juan Soto's now off the board. Tyler O'Neill's off the board. They're in on Clay Holmes as well. He is off the board. There's so many different players that are off the board. We did a Willie Adames episode. He's already off the board as well. These dominoes are going to start the fall. So they're going to have to make a move sooner or later before they miss out on these big free agents once again.
Yeah, Carter, you know what? I wouldn't be shocked. I think for me personally, we need to see a move made by the middle of next week. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting very concerned that guys are going to start flying off the board. So again, we've just went through the whole thing with Juan Soto, right? We just went through the headache of what's going to happen. When is it going to happen? And now it feels like we're right back into the same situation now with Anthony Santander, Jurickson Profar, Teoscar Hernandez. We're going to have to be doing another free agency watch on all of these guys. So you go from one extreme right to the next, because now it's like, wow, it's crunch time here in Toronto Blue Jays land. And what can they pull off? Let us know what you guys think. Out of the three guys we mentioned, Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander, or Jurickson Profar, which guy are you most fond of? Let us know. I know we've asked you guys a bunch of questions this episode, but we're all sort of in the same boat here. As Blue Jays fans, we all think all the time that we know best, or we know the right pairing that is going to work. Let us know what you think, and maybe we'll do reactions to them. What is Blue Jays fans thinking for their plan B? Carter, we still got some other news to get into that I know we wanted to jump to, so we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll talk some of that. So, some other news. Carter, do you want to do the honors?
Yeah, our king has fallen once again. The rumors have been confirmed that Jordan Romano is no longer going to be a Toronto Blue Jay. Who would have thought, after obviously non-tendering him at the deadline? He is signing with the Philadelphia Phillies, and he is not signing for a cheaper deal. The arm is not an issue for the Philadelphia Phillies because he is getting exactly what was projected in arbitration, $7.75 million. Ross Atkins has come out, obviously, and said there was no health issues in that signing. It was just they wanted to move on from Jordan Romano. They couldn't agree on a dollar amount. And now you get Jordan Romano for that $7.75 million. We talk about upside. You talk about what a player can do at his peak. I think this is going to end up being a pretty good deal for the Philadelphia Phillies if there actually are no arm issues and you get Jordan Romano how you have seen him through the last 3-4 seasons.
Well, and that's exactly what this signing tells me. If it was for the $4.5 million there, I might be like, okay, maybe there is some issues still with Jordan Romano that haven't been worked out. But seeing that it's come out at the 7.75 number, I think he's fine. And the Blue Jays made a misstep here. I think not bringing back Jordan Romano for that price point is a fatal flaw that they have just made. And congratulations to Jordy. I don't want to see anything but the best for him. Again, he's been with us his 6 years in the league. We've got to watch him, throughout, pretty much the entire time that I've enjoyed watching Toronto Blue Jays baseball. He's been there. Except when I was a kid, but like in going through the 2015, 16 era, 17 era. But for the last little bit, Carter, since me and you have been completely dialed in, or locked on, as you want to say. Thank you. Small claps, crickets, whatever you want to do. Yeah. It's been Jordy. So I really don't want anything but the best for him. I hope he has a successful season. And we'll see what he can do. We'll see if that arm really is an issue or not, I guess.
There's been talks. I wasn't sure if I wanted to get in on this, but we're going to get in on it. There was talks that the reason that they non-tendered Jordan Romano, again, if it's not going to be the arm issue, it was going to be that they were trying to scrape up any sort of extra money they could for Juan Soto. Again, we talked about how it could be a problem. You sign Juan Soto, you don't really have the option to sign a lot of other free agents. Do you think that any part of this contender to Jordan Romano had to do with any of the Juan Soto contract talks, had to do with any of these contract extensions going into this free agency, or even like the Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the Bo Bichette? Do you think money was ever going to be a problem with that $7.75 million arbitration that Jordan Romano was supposed to get with a little bit of uncertainty with his arm?
Maybe. I think it's dumb if that's the case. I think it's a very stupid move from this front office and this organization. But I think it's a stupid move in general not bringing him back. So, yes, for it to be all based on Juan Soto coming here is a complete misstep, a complete idiotic move. I think that either way, Jordan Romano should have been brought back. But if it does come out that this was somehow linked to them wanting to get Juan Soto, which we will probably never know, but if that's the case, it might be one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I don't think, like, I can't fathom it being because of the Juan Soto stuff. I think, if anything, it means that they have more confidence in guys like Chad Green and Eric Swanson to maybe take over a bigger role than they had in 2024. With Chad Green, I guess it can't really get any bigger. This guy was the closer. He was the setup man. He was a seventh inning guy. But it might show just how much faith that they do have in on a guy like Chad Green. Is a veteran in the league, did have a pretty good season last year. Again, do you want this guy to be your closer on your team necessarily? I'd much rather prefer him just being that high leverage arm, not necessarily your closer on the team. But there is still time, especially with the bullpen arms. It's really only Clay Holmes that has come off the market. Again, you had some lower tier guys. But when we talk about the bullpen, we could use 7 new arms probably in the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. But more realistically, if you get that guy that you can know for sure is going to have a good year in 2025, then after that, if you do have to play a little bit of the trial and error game, well, it's not going to be fun looking at this team on paper going into the season, especially from the bullpen standpoint. I think it's going to be hard to get excited about this bullpen going to 2025 just because I think there's going to be a lack of big moves or like the big names that, again, a lot of more so the casual fans, maybe, again, just people that aren't just inclined to as watching ball as with the newer guys. I think it's going to be a more so on the stretch of like the no-name guys, the guys that people don't know as much about. So it's going to be hard to get excited about that bullpen. But when we've seen the validity of bullpens, we've seen guys have really good years and then horrible years, then horrible years, then really good years. I think, again, if you rely on Eric Swanson, you can rely on Chad Green. Ideally, you make more than one, but if you only get one, you have a top 3, and then you kind of just have to do some trial and error. Again, I'm not going to love it, but I'd be much more okay with that than them, again, just not dressing the bullpen whatsoever and then having a guy like Soto. And then we're kind of just in the same boat where you don't have a bullpen and you got Juan Soto, which is unbelievable, but you didn't necessarily get anything else.
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see what this team addresses. Can they now rebound from being, sort of ex-Nate again? We'll wait and see. Again, leave your guys' comments down below on everything we've talked about. I know this seemed to be like a lot of information and opinions and everything, but, we're still going through it. We're still having to wait and see what the Blue Jays do next. Hopefully something comes out in the next few days, but I highly doubt it, honestly. I think, like I said, it's going to be early next week, ideally. And we'll have to wait and see. Carter, I don't know, man. It's been a crazy episode, crazy few days. As always, we appreciate everybody watching, everybody tuning in, joining the live stream is a ton of fun. I found a way to actually like save the live streams and throw them up. So I'll try to do that more now and making them into a video. So you guys can always go back and watch the live streams when they happen, because there is sometimes really good questions asked by you guys, really good answers to our questions that we give you. And just sort of everybody being together, sort of going through it all at once at the same time. It's fun. So we'll try to do more of that as the season comes up. Again, if any players do sign with the Toronto Blue Jays, we will go live right away. If they're major, if they suck, like maybe we'll just address it the next day, because like I don't really need to be talking about some random bullpen arm that's going to pitch 12 innings for this team next year. So in saying all of that, thanks again for listening, watching, doing whatever. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Come back tomorrow. We got to talk about the Vladdy extension a little bit more and what Ross Atkins, John Schneider, and the whole ordeal everybody had to say on them. We'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate you guys watching.